every area is becoming more complex, but I think unquestionably, in my mind, the sanctions area is where you've seen the most complexity increase in the compliance job. And so, you have to devote a lot more resources to figuring out who owns what. What Russian oligarch controls more than 50% of this business, and there's a lot more burden being placed on the private market to be able to police the sanctions efforts, and so that requires a lot more resources.
As we all saw very recently, the designation of the IRGC as a terrorist organization. The reason why that was a big deal is because traditionally with sanctions, you have under an executive order specific entities and individuals that are sanctioned that are linked to the IRGC. This would mark the first time that the U.S. is designating an entity of another sovereign nation as a terrorist organization. So by law, that means that any person that is deemed to have links with the IRGC can be prosecuted on criminal charges in the United States. And when you look at how OFAC rules and guidance has been coming out, it's a big stretch. When we're talking about links to the IRGC, sometimes this goes up to 6 to 8 degrees of separation when you can qualify as a link to the IRGC. So that is obviously a compliance nightmare.
When you start thinking about things like blockchain technology, the dark web, other things where a lot of these areas can be driven underground and becomes very hard to penetrate. When I think about the complexity of this, it is using cutout corporations, the sophistication of the schemes themselves, and the use of technology to further those schemes that really complicate the anti-bribery risk.
What we've been finding is, in terms of how you define culture within your company, and we talk about it in terms of values and behaviors, but then if you step it back and say within a trading organization, what are the types of behaviors that our regulators expect our folks to have? It's really around pulling together the data sources that we have available around, whether it's gifts and entertainment, conflicts of interest, and finding a way to distill that information together that helps us to provide the business with trends around potential emerging issues. Cybersecurity is probably one of the top risks in terms of assuring that the integrity of your data, your customers' data, all of that is safe from being hacked. That might not necessarily be compliance's bailiwick. Does it belong with our cyber group? Does it belong with IT&S? But ultimately, there are aspects of it that are requirements for me in my compliance role, which is making sure that we have a system in place where we are able to kind of supervise the systems and we can contact regulators when we're so obligated.
In a siloed organization, there's little discussion on what compliance would like to know before that person in the non-US jurisdiction is signing on the invoice.
The very core of the compliance program is the policy, particularly in third-party compliance. We can't have a divergent policy because we are one global company. And so constantly pointing back to the policy is how I ensure that we maintain a unified program.
What you have to start with is your code of conduct. What is your strategy? What is your code of conduct? What are your policies and procedures? And what's your risk appetite? And all those things should underpin what information you need, what third-party relationships you are going to embark upon, and therefore what policies and procedures need to be underpinned by technology. The technology should never in any way drive your compliance function. The technology should supplement and enhance your compliance function.
It's constantly teaching the sales force and the third parties about why we need this information. Here's the policy behind it. Here's our policy behind it. Here's the laws that are governing us. Now will you tell me, otherwise I can't do business with you. and I have every intention and every desire to do business with you.
On behalf of Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones, thank you all very much for coming.